This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about What If Season 2, Episode 6, What If Kahhori Reshaped the World?
So many stories spawn from a choice, but Kahhori's victory wasn't because she merely chose the right path. No, it was her conviction, because she remained true to her course, unwavering in the face of both devastation and miracles alike. Such resolve is often what burns brightest, what elevates an individual to something more. And perhaps it's why heroes very seldom stop after their first victory.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders, to Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. Oh, daily podcasting, John.
I know.
There's a lot of podcasts, isn't it?
Lots of podcasts.
But
Back
we
into the swing of things for sure.
Absolutely. But we are 6 episodes into What If with a very special episode of What If called What If Kahhori Reshaped the World. I'm one of your hosts, Derek, in case you don't know by now.
Yes, and fellow Defenders, if you don't know by now, I am your other host, John. Welcome to this podcast.
Mm-hmm. And what an episode this one was.
Oh, absolutely. Loved it. Loved it.
Oh, it's an absolutely gorgeous episode. Really, really beautiful and really special. Really interesting to do something like this with the What If story.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the part of me felt this was also, we're expecting the 1602 episode, but this felt like it was in that same kind of world with the Conquistadors and with Queen Isabella. It felt like it was in that wheelhouse and of that time. So I really, really enjoyed this.
Yeah, definitely. Just a reminder, of course, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, you can pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast on any mysterious podcast player in the multiverse. We do want to hear your thoughts. We'd love to hear your thoughts about this episode particularly. So email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com if you have any thoughts on this one. Or you can come on and join us over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries, where we have spoiler posts up for every episode of What If.
Absolutely. Let us get into our spoiler-filled discussion. Derek, who gave us what, were, when, how, why, and where?
Well, of course, executive producers for the show are Bryan Andrews, AC Bradley, Brad Winderbaum, and of course, Kevin Feige as well. Head writer for the show was AC Bradley. This episode, though, was written by Ryan Little in collaboration with the citizens of Kanien'kehá. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's the Mohawk Nation. So very much done in collaboration with that community to ensure that everything was right. The language that's spoken is the actual Mohawk language, which is really interesting that they made that decision to do 90% of the episode in the Mohawk language. Yeah. And the other, about 8% was in Spanish, and then a tiny bit of the Watcher in English.
And Stephen Strange, yeah, exactly.
And Stephen Strange, of course, yeah.
Just mainly subtitles for this episode. It was really good.
But it's
I'm
really
glad they
language,
really committed to that. It was superb, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Really interesting that the main character here, Kahhori, is played by Devery Jacobs from Reservation Dogs, which is available on Hulu or Disney Plus as well. So she's one of the main characters on that show. So really interesting to have her on board here as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Good stuff. A First People story in the Marvel Universe. Of course, episode directed once again by Bryan Andrews as well. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with What If Season 2, Episode 6, What If Kahhori Reshaped the World?
Sure. After Surtur destroys Asgard during Ragnarok, the Tesseract crash lands in the Haudenosaunee Confederacy in pre-colonial America. The Tesseract falls into a lake, releasing the energy of the Space Stone into it, giving it magical properties. In the late 15th century, a young Mohawk woman, Kahhori, and her brother, Wáhta, are hunted by Spanish Conquistadors led by Rodrigo Alphonso Gonzolo, who have ransacked their village in search of the Fountain of Youth. The Conquistadors chase them into a cave where they capture Wáhta and shoot Kahhori, causing her to fall into a lake. The Space Stone located at the bottom of the lake creates a portal and teleports Kahhori to another dimension, where she is nursed back to health by fellow Mohawk people. One of the villagers Tesseract explains that people who interact with the lake are teleported to the sky world, where they gain the powers and become immortal, but are unable to return to their home. Kahhori stays and becomes acquainted with the sky world villagers while also familiarizing herself with her new powers. Eventually, Gonzalo dispatches men into the lake, believing it to be the Fountain of Youth. The conquistadors are teleported to the sky world where they attempt to attack the villagers, but are stopped by Kahhori, who forces the portal in the sky to the ground in order to return to her home to rescue her people from the conquistadors. She is later joined by the sky world villagers who help her defeat the conquistadors and rescue her people. Sometime after, Kahhori and the Skyworld villagers force Queen Isabella of Spain to make peace with the Mohawk people. Dr. Strange Supreme appears from a portal and congratulates Kahhori for causing world peace, saying that he has been looking for her for a long, long time.
Yeah, another interesting ending.
Absolutely,
last episode where we had a portal opening and Captain Carter disappearing into 1602. Here we have Strange Supreme arriving from our current timeline, where he currently is going and finding Kahhori.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So let us get into our top 3 points here. Our first one is, what if we had seen this before? You know, what are the cinematic universe references here? I mean, certainly there's the Thor Ragnarok right at the start, where we see Surtur kind of defeating Odin here. And the Tesseract kind of being destroyed to some extent, but a piece of the Tesseract, well, in fact, I think the whole Tesseract survives ultimately, and falls into this lake system underground on Earth.
Yeah, and I suppose the big change there is that it's Ragnarok is happening significantly earlier than it happens in the MCU.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And in many respects, then there's not too many other references. I mean, that's almost like the jump off point. But here we come into this whole new world primarily.
Literally
of
the new world.
First peoples in pre-colonial America. And how, I think as the Watcher describes, you know, with this piece of Tesseract that has survived, it's created new wonders, and it creates this new wonder in North America. And where it, you know, ultimately the implications of that take place over time. And so you have, in a sense, very much a new timeline produced here. Away from what we know, because of the Ragnarok event happening and in effect succeeding, as you have the destruction of Asgard.
Well, absolutely. I suppose the other things I'd probably call out from the MCU, the other movies that are kind of affected by it, or the things that we've seen that are taken into this story of Kahhori, it's really Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel got her powers from the Tesseract and from the explosion that she was caught in. So she's getting her powers very similar to how Kahhori got her powers here. We also had Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, who both got their powers from the Tesseract and the experimentation that was done on the Tesseract.
In Age of Ultron.
So, which we saw in WandaVision. We saw much more detail about that in WandaVision. So that's quite interesting that those things wouldn't have happened, of course, but we have seen on screen people getting powers directly from the Tesseract and from pieces of it. So this transformation of Kahhori isn't something that hasn't happened in the MCU before. It's just a different character, I suppose, which is the interesting part about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
think on to our point too, what if there was a small change? You know, the premise of this episode, as we said, is that we have Ragnarok taking place much earlier and being completed, you know, with the destruction of Asgard and Odin, and it's happening significantly earlier, as you've said, and bringing the Tesseract to the new world on Earth. The implication of that is that, you know, I love how this Forbidden Lake, where a number of different tribes have fought and battled over it, rather than coming together to use it as a single resource. And this land where the Forbidden Lake is, it is deemed to be cursed. It hasn't been cleansed following these battles. So we have Kahhori and her brother Wáhta coming across all these skeletons where you've had battles between different tribes of the Mohawk Nation to, I guess, maybe have supremacy over this new resource. But when they actually come across it, it just seems like they call it a puddle with some ducks on it. Because actually what we find later, when Kahhori and her brother run to this place again to escape the conquistadors who are attacking their village, is that the Forbidden Lake is underground. It's within an underground cave system with this sort of fluorescent blue. And
very familiar fluorescent blue, of course, with the Tesseract, because we've seen it for, we saw that right back in the first Avengers movie, so we've seen the Tesseract for a very long time, and saw it in Captain America as well. So it's something that formed a part of the early phase 1. So it's a very familiar light that we're seeing there. But also I like how the Watcher explains much more sympathetically why the different tribes were fighting with each other over the power in the lake. And it's more to do with the fact that when someone falls into the lake and gets dragged under, like Kahhori does, they disappear and the tribes think they're dead. So they're mourning the loss of some of their greatest warriors. And that's driving them. This loss and sorrow that they have is driving them to battle with each other. And eventually they form a peace between them. And the way to control that peace is by saying that this lake is a forbidden lake, that nobody can go to it again, because then they won't lose any more warriors, right? So I thought that was a really good explanation that came from the Watcher above, seeing it from a different perspective than a member of the tribe like Kahhori had seen it.
And the conquistadors here in this sense are then searching for the Fountain of Youth, and we have them chased into the underground cave system where Kahhori is shot and falls into the lake, and that's where and how she is dragged through this portal created by the Tesseract into then what is known as the Sky World, this other dimension, this other world where all the previous First Peoples of the Mohawk Nation have been taken to and have set up their own society here. And
again, not really said as such, but they would have all been members of different tribes, exactly as Kahhori was talking about, the tribes that fought together, and now they're in the Sky World. They're all working together and have created their own community in there. So despite the fact that in the world they left behind, their own tribes would have been fighting against each other. Actually, they're all working together when they're in the Sky World. Kahhori kind of describes the Sky World as almost like a heavenly place that you go to after you die, before she goes into it. And now she's in here. That's what they've named the place, is the Sky World. This whole storyline, I must say, really gave me a connection to the way Neil Gaiman comes up with his stories and in his books and his comics. There's always a central idea that we know from either history or from fiction that Neil Gaiman takes and does a bit of a spin on. And the idea of the conquistadors looking for the Fountain of Youth, that is something that is in history, that the conquistadors were looking for a source of power that was protected by the First Peoples in America, that was hidden by them. They thought that there was some kind of magic, something there that they could get, because it's a very different country. They thought there was something there. So the idea that this Fountain of Youth is actually the Tesseract at the bottom of a lake, I thought it was a really good twist, and it felt really Neil Gaiman-esque. If you've read any of his books or any of his short stories, there is something that he does with how those are written, where when you read it, you realize, oh, he's actually talking about the chalice of Christ or something like that is at the center of a story, but the way it's revealed to you is similar to how it is in this episode of What If. I thought they've taken a Neil Gaiman type story.
Totally agree. Cool. It's why I was saying it felt of the 1602.
Yes.
Neil Gaiman graphic novel, in terms of that. And I kind of liked how, yes, this whole law was brought into here, where Kahhori then, begins to learn that it's a permanent one-way travel as far as those that have gone there before. They've tried to get to the portal in the sky, but are unable to, where she meets Atharak, and, you know, they go through this, and she's beginning to, you know, everything has absorbed some of this power, including them, and she's beginning to learn some of the things that she can do. You know, she's touching the trees, and it kind of glows blue when she pulls it away.
Everything's
it's almost
filled,
like there's bioluminescence in a sense.
Yeah, definitely some Avatar in there. You know, if Avatar were going to do an animated TV show, like hopefully it would look as good as this looks. Like it looks absolutely beautiful. They've taken a little bit of inspiration from that. There is, of course, the tribe working with the land. So I really like the way Tesseract is explaining that the land wants to help you. The land wants to work with you to accomplish your goal. But while they have attempted to leave, it feels like, as Tesseract explains, this is a paradise. We don't age, we don't die, nobody gets sick, we can all work together, we can all live off the land, and the land works with us to provide everything that we need. It is a version of heaven. It is a version of their heaven, what they were trying to achieve when they lived in the Americas, in the New World, I suppose, beforehand. So I loved that sense of their belief system coming together to explain what was going on.
Yeah, and I loved how, like, in terms of the, you know, the conversations between Kahhori and Tesseract, you have, you know, that her kind of tribal or spiritual animal is a wolf, his is a turtle, and it's also the notion that, you know, she is the disruptive influence that's come in here because she has gotten to escape the conquistadors, and, you know, in a sense, she wants to seek a pathway home, and you see her trying to do that by floating branches up to try and reach the portal in the sky. And it comes to a head where Gonzalo's troops, you know, he makes them go into the Forbidden Lake, you know, and is asking them, are you becoming youthful? But they are transported to the sky world as well. And it's only with that attack from them on the people already there that, you know, I like how she's kind of challenges those First Peoples that have already been there, you know, that you've lost sight of your ancestors. You know, it's almost she's lamenting that they've become too comfortable, and that, you know, this attack on the sky world reminds her of the attack that's happened to her village, you know, and the destruction of her village, the imprisonment of her people by the Spanish. And, you know, I'm going to face these monsters, she says, as she draws on the power that she has. And she does seem hugely powerful to actually pull the portal from the sky to the surface in order to be able to just walk through it. A bit like one of the Doctor Strange sling rings.
Exactly.
So I really liked how, you know, she's this disruptive, challenging, sort of presence here, as they have kind of, in a sense, settled down.
Exactly.
Here.
There's almost like this challenge from her going, how dare you get this power, live this beautiful life, and not use it to help our people who are dying, who are being killed by the conquistadors? How dare you sit on your laurels here and be happy with your lot in life when you know there's a way out of here if we all work together and we can go back and help people like her people, her tribe. So I really like that, you know, and again, voiceover from the Watcher saying, you know, this is a hero. It's not about the fact that she got the powers. It's the fact, it's what she does with the powers that make her a hero. And the inspiration that she builds within this community, within the people of the Sky World, which I thought was really cool. Yeah,
and I love her going back and facing down the Spanish conquistadors who are taking, you know, her village back to Spain, taking it back to the ships, and. You know, great where you see Gonzalo's sort of looking to take a shot at her with his musket, but ultimately then orders all the cannons to fire from the ships, and she's doing her best, but it's too much. And then, you know, that challenge that she set to her people in the sky world, they ultimately take it up and come to also help save and rescue her people from the oppressors. So,
destroy the Spanish
galleon. It was really good. I really enjoyed this. And I mean, it's in that same wheelhouse you see as with Wakanda Forever and Namor and the the Mesoamerican people of, Mexico. And I loved that. And I similarly absolutely loved this as well.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting when they do something like this. I find it really fresh, really invigorating.
Definitely.
There's just kind of so much kind of hope to it. And certainly in this sense, I guess if we're to go to our third point, what if the universe was changed forever? This is about the changing of history, that the conquistadors failed. As we hear Queen Isabella of Spain saying, we've lost, or her advisor saying, we've lost Gonzales, we've lost the Mendoza brothers, we've lost Jacoba, and we can't deny it any longer that we cannot claim the new world.
Absolutely.
And the arrogance of Queen Isabella of, I have the mightiest army, the fiercest, most unrivaled, navy. And, and
just that idea that she's saying, I was ordained by God to be your ruler. A person in Spain who's saying, I'm coming to your country, taking your country, and I'm the one that has been ordained to rule your country. Just the idea of the audacity of that. And I love it. I love as Kahhori arrives, using the portal again, interestingly, with her people, to come along with her. And what she's looking for is peace. She's not saying, I want the throne of Spain. I'm coming back to take your country like you came to take mine. The line that she says of, I believe your health and our health are connected.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're healthy, we're healthy. If you're safe, we're safe. This is not about fighting and creating a new war. This is about us being peaceful and working together within this world. I thought it was a beautiful way of closing out that story, of closing out this really powerful person who does show off her power. She throws Isabella out of the chair and destroys her throne, showing that if you don't want to cooperate with us, that will be the end of your society.
Yeah, she says there will be no future for your people. So it's certainly, hard bargaining here.
Absolutely.
But in a sense, a necessary one, because you have the arrogance of the assumption of preordained power and rule over other people, whether it's her own people in Spain, but also, through God, through the church, through being of royal bloodline, to ultimately people in new worlds, So I thought this was really, really good.
Absolutely.
And then ultimately finishing off with Stephen Strange, or Strange Supreme, coming through a portal, sort of saying, world peace in record time. Kahhori, I've been looking for you for a long time.
Yes. Interestingly, what he says at the end of world peace in record time, that's going to last. And it has that kind of disdain that Stephen Strange adds to his words. It's kind of like, you forced people into world peace. That's probably not going to last a very long time. So I'm not really too sure what Strange Supreme wants with Kahhori, but she is a powerful ally, I'm sure, if you can get her on board.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So really good. I think.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about? Any notes about the episode, John, that we haven't talked about?
I think just the hunt for the fruit that's on the back of the buffalo that they awake, sort of, or this world's equivalent almost of a buffalo herd.
Yeah.
You see Kahhori really with very high speed and then the strength to stop one of them and flip them over, which none of the others seem to be able to do.
Yeah, I think Tesseract is saying to her, never run in front of them, because effectively they will trample you. They will kill you. But after Kahhori lifts the one, flips it over, you see the rest of them give her a wide berth almost. They don't trample her. They move around her. So again, exactly as he said, this place is trying to work with you. This place, this world, this planet will help you achieve what you want to achieve. So it's very cool. I really, really, really like that. One note that I had was about the name of the episode itself. What if Kahhori reshapes the world? I had thought coming into it, hearing that it was a new MCU hero completely created for What If. She hadn't appeared in any comics before. Given that title, I did feel like she was going to be another Scarlet Witch, a version of Scarlet Witch. In the comic books, one of the biggest storylines of the Scarlet Witch is the fact that she reshaped the world so that she could save her children, and created the House of M, as John, you'll remember that, that comic book series. So I thought what Kahhori was going to be doing is using her powers to actually effectively magically change the world.
Okay,
What she's doing here, I love the idea that she's changing history by using her powers to get world peace, to stop the Spanish from taking
the
over
destruction of her people,
taking over the new world. So that is the big change. That is how the universe has changed forever, how this world has changed forever. We no longer have the new world conquered by the Spanish conquistadors, right? So that's a massive change. If that had happened in our world, America would be a very different place, right?
Exactly.
So thought that was really interesting. There was an interesting warning at the end of the episode, or I don't know, disclaimer, I guess, at the end of the episode, for the first time, saying this is a multiversal story. It's playing out, and it isn't intended to offend anybody. So, which I thought was interesting, given that they didn't put that after any of the other episodes. So,
yeah, it is a bit weird. I mean, I don't know who that's supposedly directed to. You know, is it something to do with the spiritual aspects of the Mohawk Nation, or is it just sort of gammon heads who would take offense at or I don't know. It's an interesting one, but I guess it's something they feel they need to do. I mean, it reminded me a bit of Ubisoft, the games developer with Assassin's Creed. They kind of talk about how the game has been created by a multicultural, multi-faith team. But it's a strange one. I always wonder who that's being directed at.
It's just in case, I guess. Is there somebody out there that thinks that the conquistadors were doing good, traveling across the world, slaughtering people and taking over a nation? Is that will they get defensive about that? So Marvel have to anticipate that by putting up that disclaimer. But I must say, I thought this was absolutely beautifully delivered as a story. I thought it was so well written, so well put together, and what a cool character Kahhori is. Really want to see her in the future, and I wonder, would Devery Jacobs play the character of Kahhori in live action if we would see the character moving over from What If? Would be cool, wouldn't it? Yeah. But I guess that's it overall for the discussion of the episode. John, do you defend season 2, episode 6, What If Kahhori Reshaped the World?
I absolutely do defend this. I loved this one. I'd give this 5 Brave New Worlds out of 5. I thought this was really great. I love the whole changing of the history. I love the use of the Tesseract here. I love the use of the First Peoples and the First Peoples hero. That's really in my wheelhouse. Absolutely loved it. I thought, the commitment to have it all done in the Mohawk Nation's language, really good. I loved just the whole premise of it. This is not only just a what if of the Marvel MCU, it's the what if of a different history. It's kind of like, what if someone went back and killed baby Hitler? How would the world be different? Would it be better? Would it be worse? The intrigue at the end with Stephen Strange being a little bit dubious, a little bit, a bit unreadable here in terms of actually what he's asking at the end. I really, really enjoyed it. And so for me, hats off to Marvel for doing this again. It feels like it's really filling a hole for me in the MCU in terms of how they tackled Namor as well. So I've really enjoyed this sort of exploration of First Peoples, Mesoamerica in the Marvel universe. So for me, absolutely defend this episode. It is 5 Brave New Worlds out of 5, and I can't wait to see Kahhori in a comic book with her own dedicated story.
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And I do feel, obviously, with the way this episode ended, that we will be seeing Kahhori back in a later episode of What If as well. I hope so. They've created her for the show. Let's make sure they bring her back.
Absolutely. Derek, do you defend this episode?
Absolutely. This is excellent. This is really, really good. This is when an animated show is firing on all cylinders. They've got a really creative idea. They've got beautiful animation. They're working in collaboration with the Mohawk Nation to make sure that it's within their style as well, to create this beautiful world, create this really interesting story, this really interesting concept. Exactly as you say, John, you know, it really does sit alongside the Mesoamericans with Namor and the Wakanda Nation with Black Panther, and what they've done with those worlds. Here we have First Peoples, and done really, really well. What a great way to introduce these characters and this world into the MCU. Really excited to see Kahhori back in the future.
Yeah.
Great stuff. But John, once again, what if we had some feedback from our wonderful fellow defenders?
Indeed, yes. First up, we have some Facebook feedback from Heather Wallace, who says, this was intriguing and a genuine alternate history of the world with a Marvel spin. I'm intrigued if Doctor Strange has time traveled or, similar to the 1602 comic, exists in this time period. Yeah, interesting. I kind of got the feeling he had time traveled here.
Yeah.
I mean, the difficult thing with Doctor Strange sometimes is his outfit could be from the time of Hey Nonny Nonny.
True.
So, you never know, but that's kind of how I took it initially.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's a really interesting question. I guess we'll find out, when we get to the 1602 episode, or at least the next episode that this, Doctor Strange appears in, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks so much, Heather.
Thanks, Heather.
For the feedback. Also on Facebook, we have Lindsay Lawes, who says, a visually stunning episode. Kudos to the animation teams and an immersive experience. Kudos to the voice actors and to the ones in charge that decided to use the characters' mother tongues to really ground and immerse us in their reality. Kind of got me teary-eyed as well, given the situation that Kahhori's people were in and how she managed to rally those from the other realm to help fight the oppression. I also love that she didn't stop just freeing her own people, but decided to extend the agenda of peace all over the world. Although, like Doctor Strange, I'm not sure if that will work out the way that she had hoped. Speaking of the magical Doctor, it was nice to have him back, and once more, I am intrigued by where this season's major story is leading into. If at all, this is the same Doctor Strange we met from the previous season, and if his recruiting of Kahhori is related to Captain Carter being recruited by Fury and Wanda in the previous episode. Apologies for the rambling, but in conclusion, you can say I am very excited for all this. Cheers for the time and take care. Lindsay. Thanks so much, Lindsay.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks, Lindsay.
Totally agree with you. This was a great looking episode, and totally agree with it. It provides an immersion into the experience of these characters by having their language being used, and I really like that, because just the intonation of the conversation, even though you don't understand it, even though you're reading the subtitles, because certainly I have no fluency in that language, but you're reading it and you have this new sound, and it's so good. I really, really enjoyed it, a lot. And I mean, this Doctor is certainly the one from the previous season, and it'll be
so
interesting.
We thought that going into the movie Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness, that was going to have Strange Supreme in it, and it turned out to be just another version of Strange. So I guess we can't tell until he comes back if it's definitely the same, but it's certainly similar to Strange Supreme from last season. It's very similar.
So it'd be interesting now, sort of what state of mind he's in, given his season one experiences, to be honest. So it'll be interesting now. But like you, absolutely excited for the rest of this season of What If.
Yeah, it's interesting. Is Strange Supreme connected to Fury and Wanda from the last episode, or are they recruiting two different teams to fight against each other or something?
Yeah, well, exactly.
That could be an interesting way to go. But again, we'll see as the season goes on. Great stuff. Thanks, Lindsay. We also got some feedback from Joel Sharpton over on Facebook, who says, feels more and more like they learned every good lesson from season 1 and have knocked it out of the park with season 2 of What If. Since this series was always one of my favorite comics, I couldn't be happier. I love this tale, and tying it so directly into our overarching narratives is smart. This could genuinely be a live-action miniseries adaptation, and I'd be super excited to watch it.
Definitely.
Reminded me of the dubbed version of last year's Prey on Hulu at times. Oh, I like that. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, definitely see that connection. Joel, yeah, it really is excellent. It really is an excellent episode. Exactly as I said myself as well. This is what you do when you have a what if, a story of any type of possibility in any type of universe. If you can find this nugget of an idea and be able to deliver it and execute it as well as they have in this episode, that's when what if is at its best, right?
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Joel. Glad you're enjoying season 2 of What If.
Absolutely. Victor Von Doom says, I would like to see more of this new character. It looks like Strange Supreme. We'll see to that. I was pleased to see the huge collaboration with the Navajo Nation as well. Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, Victor.
Excellent stuff. Thanks, Victor. Dr. Bob says, this told a tale I've not seen very much of at all and loved it. Mm-hmm. Always appreciate characters are allowed to speak in their own language rather than everyone needing to communicate in English for the watchers, please. In this story, it helped emphasize the oppression of colonialism even more. Mm-hmm. Good stuff, Dr. Bob. Yeah, absolutely. I think the language here is just really good to have. And I mean, it's to that point, where people say that, the language becomes part of it. It becomes part of the soundscape because as you read the subtitles in order to understand it, it's that kind of intonation of the language, which is very different from English. And it's the same with having the Spanish, you know? Yeah. So yeah, really good. Thanks, Dr. Bob. Mm-hmm. And also then finally on Facebook, Joe Herbert says, this was a surprisingly moving episode. Mm-hmm. Not what I expected from What If. That includes Party Thor.
I agree with you, Joe. I'm glad they're not including Party Thor this season at all. They obviously learned their lesson, realized it was a terrible episode, and aren't going to repeat it in the future. But yeah, this is an excellent episode. And again, the show is hitting it out of the park this season. There's been so many good episodes of the season so far. We're 6 episodes in. I think I've loved 5 and liked 1. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, so that's a good ratio. Yeah, absolutely.
Finally, we have an email in from Coffee and Vodka who says, greetings, fellow Indigenous defenders. Here I was looking forward to the 1602 episode as the expected best of season when along comes Kahhori and friends, and not just their power, but a powerful message. Grow up, get along, and be one with the land or else. The use of language, lore, and love for the subject matter elevated everything to description-defying levels. Then to bring in Strange Supreme with his recruitment drive to close it off, absolutely brilliant. The MCU has its first notable new hero since Captain Carter in Kahhori, who I can already see in her own fast-tracked live-action movie. Off for another rewatch. 5+ bejeweled buffaloes, Tesseract tribes, and spanked Spanish expansionists out of 5. Peace and take care, Coffee and Vodka. Seriously, I haven't felt an oncoming media vibe like this since the first appearance of Harley Quinn. The right hero with the right message at the right time. This is going to be big.
Interesting
That's
prediction
massive.
there.
Yeah, that's massive. Kahhori is fabulous. Really, really enjoyed her. I'm hoping we're going to get to see a lot more of her in the future. I know they're slowing down production on a lot of the stuff. They're not actually greenlighting or putting stuff into production quickly at the moment at Disney or in the movies. They're kind of slowing that down at the moment. But if ever there was a character that deserved a bigger role, a bigger spotlight in the future, I think Kahhori is that. They've introduced her so well here.
Yeah,
I hope
absolutely.
lots of people watch this episode.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Coffee and Vodka.
Yeah, thanks, Coffee and Vodka. And thank you to all the feedback from our fellow defenders for this episode. Really good to get your thoughts and theories and observations and comments on episode 6.
Absolutely. If you want to send in your thoughts, you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. That's it for Kahhori Reshaping the World. We'll be back next time with season 2, episode 7 of What If. What if Hela found the 10 rings?
Ooh, interesting.
Our first callback to Shang-Chi movie.
Yeah.
One of my favorites of the MCU so far. Really, absolutely love Shang-Chi. So really intrigued to see what they do with Hela walking around in the world of the 10 rings.
Absolutely.
It's really interesting. Good stuff. We'll be back next time. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining us, fellow defenders. Until the next episode and the 10 rings. Mm-hmm. Keep watching, keep listening, and of course, keep defending.
Mm-hmm. Bye.
Bye.